This old film, made in 1947, shows the danger of a hot water heater or boiler exploding. It has been likened to a missile or small bomb going off. Pressure builds up from a faulty valve. The results can be devastating. Up until now, Oklahoma has not even had a law on the books that requires inspections of these instruments. A bill in the legislature would change all that at a cost of $40,000 and, of course, a price tag of additional employees.
We have 4 inspectors. They estimated that it would take a total of 22 inspectors, and I told them, no way, that's just completely out of the question. So we've narrowed that down to 5 additional inspectors, which would make a total of 9. And we're going to have to figure out some ways to pick up the slack. And I don't want to use that phrase, more bang for your buck. That's kind of old hat, but we're just going to have to work harder.
The new law would require inspections at all public buildings, and that includes 600 school districts all over the state. The department may only be able to inspect them once a year because of staff limitations, but the department feels it will still make a big difference in keeping public buildings safe. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the State Capitol Complex.
Federal investigations into Oklahoma County government brought many county officials before judges and focused attention on a system that needed change. Commissioners and suppliers said the system had been corrupt for so long that many didn't consider it wrong any longer. The state wanted reform. A new bill setting up a county purchasing agent is on the governor's desk for final approval. Its legislative sponsors hope the bill will correct the past corruptions.
A real reform, if there is in this, that we think will probably be more credible than anything, is that an officer outside the courthouse, actually a state official, county road engineer, will have that responsibility for the road equipment fund, which is by far the greatest amount of expenditures are made in that fund.
The new bill is supposed to put the buying practices back into the courthouse. It also divides the work between more of the people already in the system. 2 facts that people hope will make taking kickbacks harder. The governor doesn't plan any action on the bill until Tuesday. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Well, it appears at this time we had one unit in the apartment complex here that was ignited probably from the bed itself. Possibly a smoldering cigarette left in the bed. It in turn ignited the unit.
The women visited several lawmakers at the Capitol, some lawmakers who have already cast their vote on the amendment. They carried flowers as a kind of peace offering. And even though defeated earlier in the year, the women aren't giving up. And they thought that Mother's Day would be a good chance to get across the idea that it's not necessarily working women or young militant types that support the ERA.
Good morning, Senator. I'm Lillian Gladstone from Stillwater. This is Irene Cummins from Stillwater. And we are here on behalf of ERA celebrating Mother's Day. And we hope you will help pass ERA. We think it's very important. Thank you very much for your time, Senator.
We asked some of the women how Mother's Day tied in with the ERA.
We want equal representation for our children, for our daughters. And we don't want to continue this inequality, is really my answer.
It's the female in the family that is burdened with, you might call it slavery, since we aren't equal. It's submission, it's slavery, and we're tired of that.
Since the majority of lawmakers are men, and men are said to love their mothers, it'll be interesting to see what effect Mother's Day at the Capitol had on them. But one thing's for sure, it just goes to show you that ERA supporters have tried just about everything to get their amendment passed. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the state capitol.
Most of the kids and teachers at Winding Creek Elementary School like their principal. Kenneth Mobs has guided the school for 4 years. Teachers and pupils alike were saddened to learn their principal was suspended, but they tried to keep their sorrow from affecting their school performance.
Oh yes, we had a normal day. This is a very professional building, and we wouldn't let anything interfere with the children. Of course, they've been very sad and upset. We all had our talk this morning, and then we went right ahead with our day.
Most all of us have worked with Mr. Mobs as long as she's been here at Winding Creek, and we think the world of him. He's a very honest man, and we want to see him back for sure.
The acting Winding Creek principal is Chuck Wood. He'll take over until Mobs' future is settled. Wood normally works with taller students.
I deal with the juniors and seniors over at the high school, so yes, we have quite a difference in age group here. But it's been a while, but I have been with this age group several years in the past. So it brings back old memories. I've enjoyed it. Y'all get on the bus. You better go.
How do you feel about having a new principal?
Oh, I like the old one.
Mobs has 10 days to appeal his dismissal, but even if he's successful in overturning the suspension, it's doubtful Mobs could be back at Winding Creek before the semester ends May 27th. Scott Wallace, Action 4 and more.
With rain clouds still threatening on the horizon, parts of Wichita Falls saw by the light of day what they had witnessed in the dead of night. Automobiles abandoned by fleeing occupants or brushed about by angry floodwaters stood alone in the sea. Nearby Holiday Creek swelled to its limits. The floodwaters in parts of the French village crested at 3 feet. Residents waded through this parking lot, which had to be crossed last night by boat.
We looked out here and water's about, 1.5 feet up into the car, and wasn't nothing else we could do then. Except we got the people downstairs, had them come up and stay the night with us. But that's an $18,000 car. I don't know if it's worth anything right now.
Among the casualties, soaked carpets and automobile carburetors choked by moisture. Many people spent this morning trying to revive washed-out engines while the flood drained away. But neighborly hospitality was warm and dry.
Just give it to somebody.
Paul, you want some coffee?
Thank you.
Many remember the last big disaster to roar through town, the killer tornado that destroyed this entire area several years ago. With that memory to ponder, this flood may not be so bad. Tony Stizza, Action 4, Wichita Falls, Texas.
This is an example of what 6 inches of rainfall in a 3-hour period can do. At least 200 people were evacuated along Holiday Creek last night. The rain eventually stopped, but the creek kept rising, fed by overflowing reservoirs, which were good for fishing but little else. Property damage is going to be high. There's little doubt the estimate will go into the millions of dollars. How high is anyone's guess until the water goes down and people get a chance to see what's left. Some already know it won't be much.
It's bad enough. I mean, there's people going to lose everything. They're like me, they don't have any insurance on their rental apartment or whatever they're living in, they're going to lose it. And that's just how it's going to be.
This is the second major disaster for Wichita Falls in 3 years. In 1979, an enormous twister left hundreds homeless, and it was a killer. Although the flood made many people uncomfortable, it did not take any lives or injure anyone. The damage wasn't as widespread either. Despite that, city officials are considering asking the Texas governor to call on the federal government for disaster aid. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Wichita Falls, Texas.
These are the lucky ones, the ones who put their lives on the line every day and survive. Today they march in honor of those not so lucky, those courageous men who have fallen victim to a society they protect. But this service isn't just for the officers, it's also for the families who must go on living without them. Their sacrifice is just as great as that of the officer. Hazel Keith lost her son 17 years ago.
He says, Mother, someone has to do this work. And, he felt so serious about it himself. When he first was killed, they didn't have much out here at that time. But, they've just gone on and added and added. But you just hope they won't have any more names.
These men must now march back to duty, and the possibility that one day their names will be added to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Sherry Sellers, Action 4 at the Peace Officers Memorial.
Well, it's a lot of fun, and like I said a while ago, if you grow a rose, you're a winner there.
Have you been a winner?
Oh, I've won my share of the ribbons over the period of time. I don't get much of a kick out of prizes anymore. You have to polish the silverware and take it back every year. That's not fun.
Today's thunderstorms have spawned a number of tornadoes across central Oklahoma. The excitement began shortly after 10 o'clock when radar revealed a possible funnel in these angry-looking clouds near Okarche. No funnels were spotted, but the storm did deposit several inches of rain on Kingfisher. Traffic slowed to a crawl as drivers negotiated flooded Kingfisher streets. Several twisters teased weather forecasters by hiding behind storm clouds, in view of radar, but hidden from the ground. One funnel dipped into sight of Guthrie around 2:40. A Guthrie policeman sounded the alarm and dashed off to investigate. But so far, there have been no reports of damage or injuries. Other funnels have been spotted in Piedmont and Cashin, but likewise no reports of damage. We have news crews stationed in the storm area, and we'll keep you abreast of any new developments. Scott Wallace, Action 4, near Guthrie.
In Oklahoma City, joining with Pan American, number one, it means profit for Continental Airlines. It means facilities for Pan American Airlines which are not available. It also can work a benefit for the traveling public.
For the South Canadian River, this is still a lot of water, but nothing compared to a few days ago. Then, the muddy river water creeped up into about 40 homes just on the western edge of Norman. But today, residents are busy cleaning up the mess left behind. Mark Ellis was one of the lucky ones. The water surrounded his home, but only his garage got soaked. But the rising water still kept him busy. He moved everything out of his house and had to fend off unwelcome visitors.
Bugs were coming everywhere. They were climbing the walls, snakes, moles, rats. You know, you could see every kind of animal there was swimming by.
The road outside Ellis's home suffered some damage too. He says it needed fixed anyway, and this seemed like a good time since the river washed a hole in it big enough to lose 2 tractors in. This front-end loader is staying on top of the situation now, packing it in to make it passable. It probably won't stay that way long, however. The ground is saturated and traffic will tear it up again. The worst of the flood is over, but it will take weeks for the area to dry out. Ted Brown, Action 4 in Norman.
Jury members listened intently with headsets of a recording Roger's brother Don made with their half-sister. In that recording, introduced into evidence by the defense, Don admits he did not tell the truth about Roger. But even more startling, Don says that's the way the OSBI wanted it, to use Roger as a scapegoat. Don says Carrie was killed in a devil-worshipping ceremony with several people attending, including Don and his wife, Thelma. According to Don, the OSBI said they would be shot outside the courthouse if they admitted the truth. In the tape recording, Don says he is telling the truth about the devil-worshipping ceremony, and he describes Carrie Kendall's last words this way.
She was just about dead.
She was just about dead.
Barely breathing.
She was barely breathing.
She was barely feel her pulse.
You could barely feel her pulse.
I seen her lips move. And she said, I kneeled down again.
And then I seen her head move. And I kneeled down again.
They wanted to know what I was doing.
They wanted to know what in the world I was doing.
And then she said, Daddy, real soft.
And then she said, Daddy, real soft.
These classrooms will soon be made into living rooms and bedrooms for about 40 Oklahoma City battered women and their children. Organizers of the shelter had been trying for months to find a place where the battered women would be welcomed. Many neighborhoods felt the shelter would lower property values. But this old school in southeast Oklahoma City could use a facelift it will receive when the battered women move in. And there's a playground for the children for the first time. Residents in the area don't much mind the shelter being near them.
We have no objection to that whatsoever. I think it's a pretty good deal.
If they want to put it there, we can deal with it, you know. We'll have to live with it, you know. I won't try to fight it, you know. I have everything against it.
I guess it's all right. I mean, you know, if it's something for the city or what have you, it's benefit the women from being mistreated and what have you, I guess it's cool.
Battered women say they need a place to heal from the brutal beatings, and that takes time. So it's important they are in an environment where there's caring and understanding from the neighbors as well as staff members. And as long as there are battered women in the city, shelter organizers say they'll continue to search for more space until every victim is safe. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in southeast Oklahoma City.
Senate Subcommittee members heard from 3 kids who still live in welfare department-run institutions and one former student. The senators heard horror stories about how the children had been subjected to physical and sexual abuse while under DHS care.
And you were noisy at night, and you were to be taken to the timeout room, but you didn't want to go?
Yes, sir.
So what happened next?
He hit me, and he took me to the timeout room, though.
Took you to the timeout room and hit you?
Yeah, he did in my room. He dragged me out of my room. He hit me, and then he grabbed my arms.
And how big was he?
He was bigger than I was then. I was pretty small then.
And what did he hit you with, his fist?
His fist.
And where did he hit you?
In the back of the head.
16-year-old David described how he was beaten by a house parent while he lived at the Whitaker Children's Home. David admits to burglarizing 30 homes after he was released from Whitaker. He has been declared a delinquent. But Christina has never been convicted of any crime. She was placed in Whitaker because her parents beat her up. While undergoing evaluation at another DHS institution, Christina claims she was strip-searched as a male security guard looked on.
They took me to the cottage and made me take off all my clothes. I didn't want to take them off. They made me take off all my clothes. Then they asked me about my scars that my parents had given me, like when my dad tried to cut off my arm and stuff like that, and so on.
And who was present with you when you were forced to take off all your clothes?
A man security guard and 2 women house parents.
A man security guard?
Uh-huh.
Do you swear that you shall testify to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Senate subcommittee members heard sworn testimony
Christina,
from 4 kids who have been under DHS care. 3 of those children still live in state-run institutions. One witness recently aged out of the system. All 4 described episodes of physical or sexual harassment at the hands of welfare department employees.
They raided any of the security guards while I was making sexual overtones to me. They whistled at me. The guard pinched me on my butt. I popped him in the chest. He threatened to take me to detention. Another security guard came to my window at night. He pulled down his pants and showed me his butt and his sex organ. He started coming by every night, pulling down his pants. Sometime he had an erection. I didn't have any curtains. They wouldn't give me any.
Particularly disturbing was a claim by one witness that students who spoke with Senate investigators were beaten up by other students at the suggestion of House parents. Both of Oklahoma's U.S. senators attended the hearing. They promised to get to the bottom of the charges.
The allegations that have been made touch a great many of lives in Oklahoma, and it is my hope that in all fairness we can get at the truth in these hearings. I believe that those responsible for such alleged abuses should not only be removed from the system, but where warranted, should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Welfare officials took down the latest testimony. Lloyd Rader and his staffers will get a chance to respond to the charges when the hearing resumes Thursday morning at 9:30. Scott Wallace, Action 4 in Washington, D.C.
In closing arguments, the defense said Roger was innocent and asked the jury to pay close attention to a tape-recorded confession by Roger's brother Don, in which Don says Carrie Kendall was murdered during a devil-worshipping ceremony on the Cimarron River. Preposterous, said the prosecution, and then said Roger is one of life's losers. His acts against Carrie were partly sexual and partly venting his frustrations against society. The prosecution admits it really doesn't have any physical evidence to link Roger to the murder, but that his own taped confession was proof Roger knew more about the circumstances of Carrie's death than anyone else.
And raise your right hand. And do you solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Department Director Lloyd Rader was the first welfare official to offer sworn testimony. Rader read a prepared statement. Then the director was confronted with evidence that his department had fired several employees for misconduct, but then failed to object when the State Merit Board ordered the fired workers reinstated.
I think the department acted improperly, acted very slowly. In some cases, we're talking about years before anything was done, and then in almost every case that I brought up, those individuals, and I'm talking about at our February hearing, either they were terminated right before that hearing, or in a couple of cases they're terminated right after, but every one of them had been reinstated. Did the state appeal any of those merit findings?
No, we haven't. We haven't appealed them. We haven't appealed them as yet.
Why hasn't your department appealed a case where you would have a person that has offenses ranging from moral sodomy to breaking arms and physical abuse? Why hasn't the department appealed those cases and findings from the Merit Board?
Well, the chairman's in the room, and we've had that under serious consideration. As was pointed out, the administrative procedure has been followed. I've been one of those department heads who's been very critical.
Critical of the procedure?
Critical. Would you let me please finish my statement, Senator?
Yeah.
Of the merit system.
Other welfare officials attempted to refute abuse charges leveled by kids who live in state-run institutions. But frequently, the session sunk into a verbal wrestling match between Subcommittee Chairman Arlen Specter and DHS personnel.
And I'd also point out that those were allegations, and they were not substantiated, in my opinion.
What was not substantiated?
The incidents that are reflected in the information that was just read.
The three incidents that I've just read to you were not substantiated?
I don't know, sir.
Well, how do you know that? That's the point. You're sitting here telling me they're not substantiated, and you're saying at the same time you've never heard of them.
I would be glad to document for you the basis for that statement from those files.
That the April 30th, 1981 incident involving Joe W. was substantiated, according to your own file?
We think there may be some confusion here with another employee, and we want to get that straightened out for you.